Welcome to Vette Vue. I'm your host Kyle McFarland. This time, we will be looking at a 1964 Corvette convertible, which is a viewer request by Mark H. Thank you, Mark. 1964 was a year of only evolutionary changes. For example, the two simulated air intakes were eliminated from the hood, though their indentations remained. This Corvette was recently listed on allcollectorcars.com with a buy-it-now price of $75,000. Here are some of the specs for this car, including the mileage. From the description, it states the following. This Corvette has had a frame-off, total nut and bolt restoration. Everything has either been rebuilt or is new. Included is a tilt steering wheel, new leather seats, new carpet, and a new AM/FM radio. All the brakes, both front discs and rear drums, have been replaced. The original 327 engine was replaced by a previous owner with a 365 horsepower 327 GM short block, which now has very few miles on it. There is a written statement from the previous owner as proof. A mechanic pulled the oil pan and valve covers. It is very clean and looks new. This Vette runs and drives excellent. The frame and main underside components were sandblasted, primed, powder-coated, and painted. This restoration is very well detailed. This Stingray has only been driven 200 miles since the restoration. The mileage of 28,222 was registered on the car, and the seller got it. This car was purchased from a collector who had it for many years in his collection. He put only 200 miles on it before he started the restoration in 2019, but he became ill and couldn't finish it, so he sold it. It doesn't look like the mileage has been tampered with. The body and paint looked good when the seller bought it, but when a shop started buffing it out, there was a slight discoloration on the front between the headlights, so the seller had them wet sand and repaint everything with very expensive paint. Now, let's turn it over to George Spankle for his commentary on originality.
Okay, Kyle, it looks like we have another 64 where they did a thorough restoration, but for some unknown reason, they used some incorrect parts, starting with the hood. They used a 65 through 67 small block hood instead of the 1 year only 64 hood, like this one.
The wheels don't look right either, right, George?
Well, Kyle, they are incorrect in two ways. First, these are 67 style rally wheels and the center caps are not a GM product. At the back end of the car, again we see the incorrect inboard clear tail lenses. All for lenses should be red for 1964.
What about under the hood, George?
Well, under the hood, this Vette is missing the ignition shielding and has an incorrect aftermarket air cleaner.
Is there anything else, George?
Well, Kyle, because this car has had a body-off restoration, there is a good chance it may have some incorrect hardware, seeing as how it has some very obvious incorrect items that I've already mentioned. It will need a closer looking at to determine if that is the case.
All right. Thanks again, George. Now let's go to the parts rack with Jamie Colavito. So Jamie, it looks like you've got a few parts for us this time.
Yes, I do, Kyle. So let's begin with the proper hood, like this one, for this 1964 Corvette. Now, onto the wheels. We will need to see either these wheel covers or the optional aluminum knockoff wheels in order for this 64 to be correct. Taking a look under the hood, we see an aftermarket air cleaner, so we will need a correct original 365 horsepower style air cleaner, like this one. Now, this Corvette's engine is missing all of its ignition shielding, so a complete set will be needed, like we see here. Finally, at the back end of this Vette, we see the incorrect clear inboard taillights, so we will need two red tail lenses, like this, to complete this restoration. I've included links in the description below for all the parts which I have shown. By clicking on the links, you can go directly to a reputable Corvette parts distributor. Now, let's turn it back over to your host, Kyle McFarland.
Okay. Thanks again, Jamie. Now, we will give our final thoughts on this 1964 Corvette. So George, how would you sum this one up for our first viewer request?
Well, Kyle, this 64 Vette has had a major restoration from the ground up, but they dropped the ball when they used the wrong hood and a few other items.
Okay. Well, how do you think that might affect the value?
If the new buyer goes to a pro shop and wants the original hood painted to match, they are looking at a $10,000 bill.
What about the engine, George?
A matching numbers block, including a teardown and rebuild, while replacing any missing or incorrect parts, will tack on another 25 grand.
Okay. Now, obviously the wheels are incorrect. So what's that going to cost?
There are two choices with the wheels. There are the knockoffs, which will run at least $2,500 for a repro set and at least $10,000 for originals. But this car more than likely had the standard steel wheels with covers. There are the early shiny version, like this, and the later matte version for the second half of the production run. Either way, the covers are going to run about $500 retail. Acquiring an original set of steel wheels will run another $500, or I guess they could cheap out and slap the covers on the existing 67 rallies.
So George, if the new owner chooses to bring this car to a professional restoration shop, requesting this Vette be put back to exact original specs, then they could be looking at a $50,000 bill. Is that correct?
That's right, Kyle. That's why I've repeatedly said if you're selling an incorrect vintage Corvette, expect to get slaughtered on the price.
So overall, what do you think a fair price for this car would be?
If this car was totally correct, we're looking at somewhere between 75 and 100 grand. With restoration costs of up to 50 grand, obviously the value needs to be discounted. I would take half the restoration costs off the midpoint value. That puts the fair value at $62,500. There's another problem for the seller, because with all original base engine 64s currently going for about 60 grand, there's going to be a lot of stiff competition.
So George, it looks like the buyer needs to be very careful with this one.
Yeah, Kyle, the buyer shouldn't get over anxious on this one, otherwise they could easily end up underwater.
Hey, take a look at my all-original 1964 big block Corvette. Oh yeah, I paid a pretty penny for it too.
Really now? A 64 big block, you say? You should have watched Vette Vue. Then you would have known a big block engine wasn't available in a Corvette until 1965. Oh well, better luck next time.
Oh crap, I should have watched Vette Vue.
Okay, that wraps up our first viewer request review. Please subscribe to our channel for more analysis of Corvettes for sale. You can also contact us at vettevue@yahoo.com. Special thanks to George Spenkel, Jamie Colavito, and also to Mark H. for the request. I'm Kyle McFarland for Vette Vue. Hope to see you next time.